The sinking in 1945 is still considered one of the greatest tragedies in U.S. naval history. The USS Indianapolis's remains.
On June 7, 1942, the USS Yorktown rolled onto her side and disappeared beneath the Pacific Ocean. She took with her the secrets of how an American aircraft carrier, patched together in 72 hours, survived 2 separate Japanese attacks before finally succumbing to enemy torpedoes. For 56 years, those secrets remained buried under 3 miles of water and 16,000 feet of crushing pressure. Then, in 2025, an underwater drone squeezed through a gap in the hangar deck and captured footage that made historians question everything they thought they knew about the Battle of Midway. What the cameras found wasn't just a shipwreck. It was evidence of decisions made under impossible pressure, shortcuts taken to meet an impossible deadline, and a discovery so unexpected that researchers watching the live feed went silent. A civilian car, a hand-painted mural showing every voyage the ship had made, and aircraft still armed with live bombs, frozen in the moment when the lights went out and 2,000 men realized their ship was dying. The official history says the Yorktown was doomed by accumulated battle damage, bombs at Midway, torpedoes from a Japanese submarine, flooding that couldn't be stopped. The story has been told the same way for 83 years, but the drone footage reveals something the history books never mentioned, something that raises an uncomfortable question. Was the Yorktown killed by the enemy? Or was she doomed the moment she left Pearl Harbor? The ship that shouldn't have sailed. The Yorktown wasn't supposed to be at Midway. She was supposed to be in dry dock for 3 months. On May 8, 1942, at the Battle of the Coral Sea, an 800-pound Japanese bomb punched through her flight deck and exploded deep inside the ship. The blast killed 66 men instantly. It buckled steel plates 6 decks below. It ruptured fuel lines and started fires that burned for hours. Near-miss explosions opened seams in her hull. Water poured into compartments that were never designed to flood. By the time the battle ended, the Yorktown was trailing a 10-mile-long oil slick across the Coral Sea. She limped toward Pearl Harbor, listing to port down by the bow, with pumps running continuously just to keep her afloat. Repair estimates said 90 days minimum. Some engineers said she should be written off entirely and scrapped for parts. Admiral Chester Nimitz had other plans. American codebreakers had just cracked the Japanese naval codes. They knew something terrifying. 4 Japanese fleet carriers were heading for Midway Island. The attack would come on June 4th, exactly 3 weeks away. Nimitz had 2 undamaged carriers, Enterprise and Hornet. Against 4 Japanese carriers, that wasn't enough. He needed the Yorktown. On May 27, 1942, the damaged carrier eased into dry dock number 1 at Pearl Harbor. Nimitz stood on the dock watching water drain from the basin. When the hull was exposed, the damage was worse than anyone expected. Seams had burst open across 50 feet of hull plating. Frames were bent. The structural keel showed stress fractures. This was damage that required cutting out entire sections of the ship and welding in replacement steel. It was months of work. Nimitz turned to his officers and said 5 words that would seal the Yorktown's fate. "We must have this ship back in 3 days." Silence. Then, Lieutenant Commander H.J. Pfingstag, the repair officer, swallowed hard and said, "Yes, sir." What followed was a miracle of improvisation. Over 400 civilian workers swarmed the ship. They worked 24 hours a day under floodlights. Rolling blackouts swept across Oahu because the welding equipment was pulling so much electricity. Men ate meals with cutting torches still in their hands. They slept on the deck where they collapsed and woke up to keep working. In 72 hours, they patched the bomb damage, sealed the hull breaches, and made the ship seaworthy. But they couldn't fix everything. The superheated boilers damaged at Coral Sea were never touched. There wasn't time. The Yorktown's top speed would be limited to 20 knots instead of her designed 32. Against Japanese torpedo bombers making attack runs, those missing 12 knots would be the difference between life and death. The hull patches were welded instead of riveted. Welding was faster, but it created rigid connections. Riveted repairs flex and absorb shock. Welded repairs transmit the impact through the entire structure. Nobody discussed what that might mean if the ship took torpedo hits. And deep in the ship's electrical systems, damaged wiring from the Coral Sea bomb was hastily repaired and never fully tested. Circuit breakers were replaced, backup generators were checked and declared functional. On paper, everything worked. Nobody had time to run the systems under combat stress to see if they would actually hold up. On May 30, 1942, the Yorktown steamed out of Pearl Harbor to join Enterprise and Hornet. Shipyard workers lined the docks cheering. The Japanese believed she was already on the bottom of the Coral Sea. She would be a nasty surprise at Midway. But she carried vulnerabilities built into her bones, shortcuts made under impossible time pressure, systems that had been repaired but not tested, weaknesses that wouldn't matter unless everything went wrong at once. At Midway, everything would go wrong at once. The battle that changed the war. June 4, 1942, started with the Yorktown launching aircraft into the pre-dawn darkness. Her dive bombers joined those from Enterprise and Hornet, searching for the Japanese fleet. At 10:25 a.m., they found them. Lieutenant Commander Max Leslie led 17 dauntless dive bombers from Yorktown into a near-vertical dive on the Japanese carrier Soryu. Bombs rained down, 3 direct hits. Soryu's flight deck erupted in flames as aircraft loaded with fuel and bombs exploded in a chain reaction. Within 20 minutes, Soryu was a burning wreck. Enterprise bombers hit Akagi and Kaga simultaneously. 3 Japanese carriers destroyed in under 5 minutes. But one remained. Hiryu. At 11:55 a.m., 18 Japanese dive bombers found the Yorktown. Anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. Gunners shot down 10 of them, but 8 got through. 3 bombs hit. The first bomb struck the flight deck at the base of the smokestack. The explosion blew a massive hole and sent fragments tearing through the deck below. The second bomb plunged down the smokestack itself and exploded inside the boiler room. 5 boilers went offline instantly. The third bomb penetrated deep into the ship and started fires below. Damage control teams moved fast. They had trained for this. Firefighters extinguished the blazes within an hour. Engineers bypassed damaged systems and got 4 boilers back online. Flight deck crews patched the holes so quickly that returning aircraft couldn't tell where the bombs had hit. By 1:30 p.m., the Yorktown was making 20 knots and recovering aircraft. Japanese pilots had reported her destroyed. They were wrong. Hiryu launched a second strike. 10 Kate torpedo bombers pressed through the anti-aircraft screen at 2:45 p.m. The Yorktown began evasive maneuvers, but she could only make 20 knots. Her undamaged sister ships could make 32. Against determined attackers with a clear shot, those missing 12 knots were everything. 2 torpedoes slammed into the port side within 30 seconds of each other. The explosions were catastrophic. They ruptured fuel tanks and flooded compartments across 50 feet. The rudder jammed. The list began immediately. Then all power failed. The main electrical systems went dead. Emergency backup generators started, but then circuit breakers began failing. Short circuits rippled through the hastily repaired electrical system. The backup power couldn't hold. Without electricity, the pumps stopped. Without pumps, the flooding couldn't be controlled. Without power, damage control teams worked in total darkness using hand-cranked equipment. The list climbed to 26 degrees. Captain Elliot Buckmaster consulted his damage control officer. Both men reached the same grim conclusion. The ship would capsize within minutes. At 3:00 p.m., Buckmaster gave the order no captain wants to give: abandon ship. The crew went over the side in good order. Destroyers moved alongside to pick up survivors. Buckmaster walked the entire ship one final time, checking every compartment for men who might be trapped. He was the last man off, lowering himself into the water at 5:00 p.m. Behind him, the Yorktown floated alone. Her decks were empty. Her engines were silent. Her list had stabilized at 26 degrees, and she refused to die. The ship that wouldn't sink through the night of June 4th, the Yorktown drifted. She didn't capsize. She didn't sink. She just floated there in the darkness, abandoned but not defeated. The next morning, patrol aircraft spotted her, still afloat, still intact. Buckmaster organized a salvage party of 170 volunteers. They reboarded on June 6th with a mission: save the ship. The destroyer, Hamann, came alongside to provide electrical power. The ocean-going tug Vireo took her under tow. The salvage crew went to work. They jettisoned heavy equipment over the side. They counter-flooded compartments on the starboard side to reduce the list. They got pumps working on the flooded spaces. Slowly, the list began to decrease. First 1 degree, then another. The ship was responding. They were actually saving her. For 36 hours, it looked like the miracle might work. The Yorktown might actually make it back to Pearl Harbor. Then, the Japanese submarine I-168 found them. The submarine had been searching for survivors from the Japanese carriers. Instead, it found the salvage operation. Commander Tanabe maneuvered into attack position and fired 6 torpedoes. The first torpedo broke the destroyer Hamann in half. She sank in 3 minutes. 81 sailors died. 2 more torpedoes struck the Yorktown on the starboard side. The explosions were massive. The salvage party evacuated immediately as the list increased. At dawn on June 7, 1942, the Yorktown finally surrendered. She rolled onto her beam ends and slipped beneath the surface. 141 men had died during the battle and sinking. The official report listed the cause as accumulated battle damage, bombs, torpedoes, and flooding. The Navy declared the loss unavoidable, case closed. But the Yorktown had floated for 3 full days after being abandoned. The salvage crew had been making real progress, and those circuit breakers that killed all power during the torpedo attack had failed for reasons nobody could fully explain. For 56 years, the answers lay 16,800 feet down in total darkness. The search begins. Finding the Yorktown seemed impossible. The coordinates from her sinking were approximate. The battle had been chaos. Ships were maneuvering constantly. Smoke from burning carriers obscured visibility. The exact position where she went down was uncertain within a 10-mile radius. At 6,800 feet down, she was beyond the reach of conventional diving or submarine exploration. The pressure at that depth exceeds 500 atmospheres. It would crush any human instantly. For decades, the technology simply didn't exist to search systematically at those depths over such a large area. That changed in May 1998, when Dr. Robert Ballard, the oceanographer who discovered the Titanic, turned his attention to the Pacific war wrecks. A joint expedition with the U.S. Navy and National Geographic deployed side-scan sonar to search for the Yorktown. On May 19, 1998, they found her. The sonar images showed a massive shape sitting upright on the seafloor. Her island superstructure was intact. Her flight deck was recognizable despite damage. After 56 years, she looked like she had simply settled onto the bottom and gone to sleep. But 1998, technology had severe limitations. Remotely operated vehicles could observe the exterior and take photographs, but they couldn't penetrate the interior. The hangar deck remained hidden. The damage patterns were only visible from outside. Whatever secrets lay within stayed in darkness. The expedition confirmed where the Yorktown rested. They documented her general condition, but the details that might explain her final hours, why the power failed, why the damage was so extensive, what the crew was doing in those final moments, remained inaccessible. For another 25 years, those answers waited in the dark. The drone goes inside. In April 2025, NOAA returned to the Yorktown with technology that would have seemed like science fiction in 1998. The research vessel Okeanos Explorer deployed the remotely operated vehicle Deep Discoverer, specifically designed for extreme depth exploration and interior penetration. The mission parameters were clear. Enter the hangar deck, document the interior spaces, and assess damage patterns that external surveys couldn't reveal. On April 12, 2025, Deep Discoverer descended through the number 2 elevator shaft. The operators maneuvered carefully. One wrong move could damage the ROV or disturb the wreck in ways that could never be repaired. The lights came on inside the hangar deck. For the first time in 83 years, human eyes, viewing through cameras, could see what the Yorktown's crew had seen in their final moments, and what those cameras captured made everyone watching go silent. The first thing they saw was the mural, a hand-painted map 42 feet wide and 12 feet tall covering the starboard hangar wall. The title read, "A Chart of the Cruises of the USS Yorktown." The colors were still vivid after 83 years underwater, blues and greens marking the oceans she had crossed. Red lines traced her path from Norfolk to the Pacific, showing every voyage since her commissioning in 1937. Battle stars marked combat missions. Port names were still legible through the rust. One researcher watching the live feed whispered, "This is the first time we are seeing this whole image. This is history in the making." The mural had been known to exist from old photographs, but nobody knew if it had survived the sinking. It had. In total darkness, 3 miles down, the crew's pride remained painted on the walls, their record of who they were and where they had been. Then the ROV moved deeper into the hangar and found something impossible to explain. Aircraft. At least 3 Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers, the same type that had sunk the Soryu that morning. One lay inverted, its landing gear visible. Beneath the fuselage, still secured in its release cradle, was a bomb, armed, live. After 83 years underwater at crushing pressure, another aircraft had clear markings visible, B5 on the fuselage, a number 5 on the upper wing. Researchers identified it as Bureau number 4581 from Enterprise's bombing squadron. An Enterprise aircraft on the Yorktown. The implications hit immediately. During the battle, carriers had been sharing aircraft. When one carrier was under attack or too far away, planes landed on whichever deck was available. The Yorktown had been serving as a backup landing platform even while under attack herself. These were the first aircraft from the Battle of Midway ever found underwater. Previous expeditions had documented ships. Now, cameras had found the actual machines that fought the battle. Were pilots waiting to man them when the power failed? Were they being prepared for another strike? The wreck held its silence. Then the ROV found what would become the expedition's greatest mystery. A vehicle, 4 wheels, rectangular body, canvas top in tatters, chrome bumper still gleaming faintly under the lights. A car on an aircraft carrier. The operator's voice came through clearly on the audio feed. That's a car. Closer inspection revealed it was a 1940 or 1941 Ford Super Deluxe station wagon, the WWII model with wood-paneled sides, a civilian vehicle that had absolutely no business being on a warship heading into combat. The leading theory emerged quickly. Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher had commanded Task Force 17 from the Yorktown's flag bridge. Senior admirals sometimes brought personal vehicles aboard for use when in port. The car might have been Fletcher's, but no records confirm this. No manifest lists a station wagon among the ship's cargo. Nobody alive today can explain why a Ford was sitting in the hangar of an aircraft carrier during the most important naval battle of World War II. NOAA issued a public request asking anyone with information to come forward. The mystery remains unsolved, but the ROV wasn't finished. As it moved through the hangar, the cameras documented evidence that would answer a question historians had been asking since 1942. The evidence in the wreckage. The torpedo damage patterns told a story the official reports had missed. On ships torpedoed at Pearl Harbor, damage from torpedo explosions extended an average of 36 feet from the point of impact. That was the standard blast radius for Japanese Type 95 torpedoes against American warship hulls. The Yorktown's torpedo damage extended 52 feet from the points of impact. The difference wasn't the torpedoes. The difference was the hull itself. The welded patches installed during the 72-hour repair had created rigid connection points in the ship's structure. When the torpedoes exploded, the shock wave transmitted through the welded seams instead of being absorbed by flexible riveted joints. The blast damage was 44% more extensive than it should have been. The hastily welded repairs had made the ship more vulnerable, not less. The hangar deck showed where the circuit breakers had failed. The electrical conduits were visible, and corrosion patterns indicated where short circuits had occurred. The wiring repairs made at Pearl Harbor had been functional, but not robust. Under the shock of torpedo impacts, connections failed, circuit breakers tripped, backup systems tried to engage but couldn't hold the load. The emergency diesel generators had worked, power was available, but the distribution system couldn't handle it because the repairs hadn't been tested under combat stress conditions. The life rafts told another story. Multiple rafts remained secured to their mounting points, never deployed. The ship had sunk faster than anyone realized. There hadn't been time for organized evacuation. Men had simply gone over the side as the list increased. Anti-aircraft gun positions showed where crews had died at their stations. Shell casings littered the deck around the mounts. The guns were still trained skyward, frozen in the positions they held when the torpedo bombers attacked. Men had fired until the power failed, and there was nothing left to shoot at. What the drone footage revealed was a ship that had been asked to do the impossible and had almost succeeded. The 72-hour repair had been a miracle of determination and skill. But miracles have costs. The Yorktown went to Midway, carrying vulnerabilities that made her more fragile than anyone knew. When the torpedoes hit, those vulnerabilities killed her. The uncomfortable truth. The repair effort at Pearl Harbor is legendary. It's told as a story of American ingenuity and determination. 400 workers achieving the impossible through sheer will. And it was. The workers performed beyond what anyone could reasonably ask. They got the Yorktown to Midway when everyone said it couldn't be done. But the drone footage forces a question nobody wanted to ask. Did the miracle repair doom the ship? The welded patches transmitted shock through the hull. The untested electrical repairs failed under stress. The damaged boilers limited her speed, making her unable to outmaneuver torpedo bombers. Every shortcut had a reason. Every compromise made sense given the time pressure. But shortcuts have consequences. Captain Buckmaster made the decision to abandon ship when the list hit 26 degrees and all power was lost. His damage control officer reported that without electricity, nothing could be done to stop the flooding. The ship would capsize within minutes. The decision was prudent. It was responsible. It saved 2,000 lives. But the Yorktown floated for 3 more days. The salvage party actually reduced the list. They were making progress. Would the ship have survived if the circuit breakers hadn't failed? Would the flooding have been manageable if the welded hull patches had been riveted instead? Would she have avoided the torpedoes entirely if she'd had her full 32-knot speed? The drone footage can't answer those questions directly, but it provides the evidence to ask them. American carrier design prioritized damage control and survivability. The entire doctrine assumed that backup systems would function when primary systems failed, but the Yorktown's backup systems had been hastily repaired under impossible time pressure and never properly tested. When those systems failed, all the design advantages became irrelevant. The ship was built to survive, but survival required working systems. The grave. 3 miles down. At 16th to 800 feet below the surface, in crushing pressure and total darkness, the Yorktown rests with her dead. The exact number of men who died is uncertain. Official records say 141 were killed during the battle and sinking. Some died from the bomb blasts, some died from the torpedo explosions, some went down with the destroyer Hammond. Others were lost during the evacuation or died of injuries afterward. Their bodies were never recovered. The depth made that impossible in 1942. It remains impossible today. In 2023, the Naval History and Heritage Command designated the Yorktown a site of extraordinary character. She is a protected sunken military craft. Salvage is prohibited. Artifact removal is prohibited. Disturbance of the wreck is prohibited. The men who died defending her are afforded in death a protection their ship couldn't provide in battle. The extreme depth has preserved the Yorktown better than any shipwreck in shallow water. Paint remains visible after 83 years. The mural still shows its colors. The car's chrome still gleams. The guns are still mounted. But that same depth makes every visit an expedition to the edge of what technology can achieve. Deep discoverers spent only hours inside the wreck. There are entire sections that have never been surveyed, engineering spaces where men fought to restore power, compartments below the hangar deck where the crew lived and worked. What other artifacts wait in the darkness? What evidence might explain exactly how the electrical system failed? What stories remain buried in sediment that grows deeper every year? The wreck is changing slowly. Corrosion works on steel that has resisted for 8 decades. Marine life colonizes surfaces. Sediment settles into spaces that once echoed with voices and machinery. Some answers may be lost before technology can find them. The window for discovery isn't infinite. What the dead left behind. The mural speaks of pride. Sailors painted their ship's history on her walls because they wanted everyone to know. This ship mattered. We were here. We did this. The aircraft speak of duty. Planes still armed and positioned for the next mission. The crew was preparing to fight again when the power failed. They didn't stop working until there was no work left to do. The car speaks of humanity. In the chaos of war, someone brought a piece of normal life aboard, a reminder that the men who fought were also men who had lives beyond the ship. The guns speak of defiance, still pointed skyward, still ready. The crews fired until there was nothing left to fire at. These aren't just artifacts. They're testimony, evidence of who these men were, what they valued, how they faced the end. The Yorktown wasn't simply lost at Midway. She helped win it. Her aircraft sank the Soryu. Her hull absorbed 2 separate Japanese attacks. Every bomb and torpedo that hit her was one that didn't hit Enterprise or Hornet. She drew the enemy's fury and gave her sister ships time to deliver the killing blows. She did everything asked of her, and more. The men who sailed her did everything right. Damage control parties extinguished fires in an hour. Flight deck crews patched holes so cleanly pilots couldn't find them. Engineers coaxed broken systems back to life. They did everything right. And still, the Pacific took her. But the story the drone footage tells isn't about failure. It's about what happens when you ask the impossible and people actually deliver it. The 72-hour repair got the Yorktown to Midway. She fought 2 battles in 1 day and nearly survived both. The shortcuts that weakened her were made by people working beyond human limits to achieve the impossible. They succeeded. The Yorktown reached the battle. She changed history. That the shortcuts also contributed to her loss doesn't diminish what those 1,400 workers accomplished. It just proves that miracles are never free. 3 miles down, in permanent darkness, the Yorktown holds her secrets. The cameras have shown us some of them. The mural, the aircraft, the mysterious car, the guns still pointed at an enemy that stopped coming 83 years ago. But the question the footage raises matters more than any single answer. What do we ask of ships and the people who sail them? What happens when doing everything right still isn't enough? How do we honor sacrifice while acknowledging that even miracles have limits? The Pacific keeps her now. But sometimes, when the technology is ready and the will exists to look, she gives up fragments of truth. The men of the Yorktown earned that much. The rest of us owe them at least the effort to understand.